Project Management Professional Training Session 10 Part 2. Tools and Techniques for Performing Quality Management. The techniques and methods used in quality management are listed in Table 9.3 and discussed in the following sections. Data gathering and data analysis. You can use the data gathering technique called checklists, discussed in the next section on quality control, to verify that a set of required steps has been performed and a set of requirements has been met. In managing quality, data analysis tools can be used to find faulty processes, determine how they can be improved, identify the root causes of quality problems, and so forth. The data analysis techniques that can be used for managing quality include root cause analysis, document analysis, and alternative analysis. You will use alternative analysis, explained in Chapter 6, to explore different quality options and approaches in order to select the best one to apply. Other data analysis processes are discussed in the following paragraphs. Document analysis. In this process, you can use document analysis to identify problematic processes that may create obstacles in meeting quality requirements. Document analysis involves accessing the relevant documents, studying them, and extracting the relevant information from them. In this case, the relevant documents would be the ones generated as outputs of the control processes, such as performance reports, test reports, and variance analysis. You will be analyzing such documents to identify problematic processes. Root cause analysis. This is a general method to solve a problem. It involves collecting information about the problem and analyzing it to find the root causes. The problem solution would lie in removing all the root causes. This approach can also be used in managing quality to identify the root causes of defects and risks, and also to address other quality problems. Once the root cause of a defect is found, you can examine the possibility of that root cause generating other defects. Process analysis. This is a technique used to identify the ways a process can be improved. It examines the problems, constraints, and unnecessary, non-value-added activities identified during the implementation of the process. Process analysis also typically includes examining the following. 1. Problems in the process. 2. Constraints faced or caused by the process. 3. Process waste, activities with little or no value that happen while performing the process. Data presentation. Data presentation techniques are used for various purposes, such as to quantify and rank the defects, expose the relationship between different project elements and defects, and identify the root causes of quality problems, how a cause resulted in a defect, and important areas that cause quality problems. In this process, affinity diagrams, covered in Chapter 4, can be used to identify the most important areas on which we should focus. Using affinity diagrams, causes are organized into groups, and these focus areas are identified. You can use flowcharts, discussed in the Plan Quality of Chapter 7, to identify the series of steps that leads to a defect or other quality problem. Matrix diagrams can be used to find the strength of the relationships between objectives, causes, and factors by examining the rows and columns of the matrix. Cause and effect diagrams, histograms, and scattered diagrams are discussed in the next section. Decision-making, multi-criteria decision analysis. The multi-criteria decision analysis decision-making technique, explained in Chapter 6 in the context of resource selection, can be used in managing quality to make quality-related decisions about projects and product. Some examples are as follows. Choose from between different approaches to quality implementation, and while dealing with defects, choose from different options regarding schedule, cost, stakeholder satisfaction, and product lifecycle. Quality audit. An audit, in general, is a structured and independent review to check or verify compliance with some of the policies, processes, and procedures. In project management, a quality audit is an independent review to check whether project activities comply with the policies, processes, and procedures of the project and the performing organization. Audits can occur as scheduled or at random and can be conducted by a third party or by properly trained in-house auditors of the performing organization. The main objectives of quality audits are the following. Identify all good practices being implemented in the project. Identify shortcomings and gaps in implementing, comparing to what was planned or otherwise. Offer assistance for improvement and share knowledge gathered from the implementation of good practices at similar projects in the organization or the industry. Record contributions from each audit in the lessons learned database of the project. These audits accomplish the following. Because one of the objectives of a quality audit is to identify inefficient and ineffective policies, processes, and procedures being used for the project. Audits reduce the cost of quality on subsequent projects. Audits increase customer satisfaction and acceptance of the product or service delivered by the project. Other tools: Design for X, DFX, also called Design for Excellence, is a set of guidelines of product design. DFX uses a formal methodology to optimize a specific aspect of a design, i.e., X, a variable. Some examples of X are performance, cost, reliability, yield, recycling, safety, quality, assembly, and logistics. The use of DFX in quality management may improve the overall quality, with the performance improvement including cost performance, hence increasing stakeholders' satisfaction. Problem solving: this very general technique, described in Chapter 2, can be used in solving issues arising in audit, control quality process, etc. Quality improvement: some findings and recommendations would come out of managing and controlling quality methods such as auditing and problem solving. Based on those, common quality improving techniques, such as Six Sigma and Plan Do Check Act, mentioned early on in this chapter, can be used to analyze and evaluate options for quality improvement. The work performed while managing quality produces the output discussed in the next section. Output of performing quality management. The main output of performing quality management includes quality reports, test and evaluation documents, and change requests, discussed next. Quality reports. Quality reports can include the following: summary findings in the quality control process, example, from quality control measurements. Recommendations from inspection. Change requests, such as corrective actions recommended for defects and bugs, example, rework or repair. Recommendations on quality improvement for project, processes, and product. List of quality management issues escalated by the team. As for the format of the reports, they may be in or include numerical, qualitative, and graphical material. Change requests. The goal of quality management is to ensure that the quality requirements are being met, and where they are not, to improve quality. For that or any other change recommended by this process, you will have to make a change request, which will be processed by the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Test and evaluation. Following the project's industry needs or requirements and the organization's templates, these test and evaluation documents are composed for testing and evaluation purposes. They may include checklists and the requirements traceability matrix. These documents are used as an input item by the control quality process. Study Checkpoint 9.2. Name the processes that will use quality reports as input. Study Checkpoint 9.3. Knowing the manage quality process, answer the following. A. List the organizational process assets that can influence this process. B. Which component or components of the project management plan will need to be modified as a result of quality activities? C. Which component or components of the project management plan will need to be modified as a result of project execution? Change requests generated by the manage quality process are processed through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Approved requests are implemented using the Direct and Manage Project Work process, and implementation goes to the Control Quality process in the form of deliverables and work performance data. Quality reports will be used by a host of processes. See Study Checkpoint 9.2. In a nutshell, the Manage Quality process identifies quality problems by comparing quality control measurements against the quality requirements and standards that are planned to be met, examines these problems and makes recommendations and change requests to eliminate or fix them, and develops tests and evaluations to be used by the control quality process to check or verify they have actually been fixed. Use the Manage Quality process to verify that the process and its products satisfy these requirements and standards. Incorporate the organization's quality policy and procedures into these activities. As you have seen, the Manage Quality process uses the risk report as an input, indicating that quality and risk are related. Implementing risk responses. The Implement Risk Response process is the process to make sure that all the planned risk responses are executed as planned. Remember, the goal here is to minimize the impact of threats and maximize the impact of opportunities on the project. Table 9.4 presents the Implement Risk Responses process in terms of input, tools and techniques, and output. Recall that planned risk response activities have already been scheduled, with resources assigned to them, through the Plan Risk Responses process, discussed in Chapter 7. In this process, you make sure they are executed. That said, The implement risk responses process is explained in the following steps in terms of the items from Table 9.4. 1. Get how-to and other information about risk. The how-to information for this process can be found in the Risk Management Plan, which also contains information on risk management roles and responsibilities assigned to each role. These persons will play important roles in implementing risk responses, and risk thresholds acceptable to relevant stakeholders. What will the acceptable remaining risk impact level be after risk response implementation? 2. Get information about risks and planned risk responses. From the risk report, you can obtain information on the overall project risk and planned responses to it. Detailed information on the individual risks, their owners, and planned responses is in the risk register. 3. Ensure the planned responses are implemented. You can use your influence skill to help the relevant stakeholders, example, risk owner, realize that it is time to take action. To validate or modify risk responses before and after their implementation, you can use expert judgment from an appropriate source. 4. Integrate activities. You can use the tools available in the Project Management Information System, example, software, to manage resources, costs, and schedule so as to seamlessly integrate the risk response activities with other project activities, and in this way keep both kinds of activities synchronized. 5. Modify documents. The documents that may change in this process are listed in the output column of Table 9.4. For example, the project team assignments will be updated with allotted resources, like funding and persons to execute response. As a result of risk implementation, the risk register and risk report will be updated with modified sets of to implement responses to individual risks and overall project risks, respectively. 6. Generate needed change requests. During or as a result of executing this process, some changes may be needed, example, more funds, or a schedule change. As always, for proposed changes to any component of the project plan, such as schedule baseline or cost baseline, change requests must be generated and processed through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. While performing planning and implementing the processes for risk management, the risks need to be monitored, which will be discussed in the next part of the book. In some projects, you might not find the resources needed within your organization to complete certain parts of the project. In this case, you would have to get those resources through procurement. Since you have procurement planned out, as discussed in Chapter 6, you are ready to actually conduct the procurements. Table 9.4. The Implement Risk Responses Process, Input, Tools and Techniques, and Output. Input Tools and Techniques Output. 1. Project Management Plan. Risk Management Plan. 2. Project Documents. Risk Register. Risk Report. Lessons Learned Register. 3. Enterprise Environmental Factors. 1. Project Management. Information System. 2. Interpersonal and Team Skills, Influencing. 3. Expert Judgment. 1. Change Requests. 2. Project Document Updates. Risk Register. Risk Report. Project Team Assignments. Issues Log. Lessons Learned Register. Conducting Procurements. As you have already learned, procurement refers to obtaining, purchasing or renting, products, services, or results from outside the project team to complete the project. Procurement management is the execution of a set of processes used to obtain, procure, a procurement item or items. Procurement planning produces the procurement management plan and other documents used to facilitate the implementation of this plan. The implementation is largely done by the conduct procurement process, which involves seeking out sellers, getting responses from them, selecting sellers, and reaching an agreement with them. Table 9.5 presents the conduct procurement process in terms of input, tools and techniques, and output. In the input column of Table 9.5, the procurement documents item and the seller proposals are discussed in the previous section. These and other input items should be familiar by reaching this point in the book. Table 9.5. The conduct procurement process, input, tools and techniques, and output. Input tools and techniques output. 1. Project Management Plan. Procurement. Management Plan. Scope Management Plan. Communication. Management Plan. Requirement. Management Plan. Risk Management Plan. Configuration. Management Plan. Cost Baseline. 2. Project Documents. Project Schedule. Requirement. Documentation. Stakeholder Register. Risk Register. Lessons Learned Register. 3. Procurement. Documentation. 4. Seller Proposals. 5. Enterprise environmental factors. 6. Organizational project assets. 1. Advertising. 2. Bidder conferences. 3. Data analysis, proposal, evaluation. 4. Interpersonal and team skills, procurement, negotiations. 5. Expert judgment. 1. Selected sellers. 2. Agreements. 3. Change requests. 4. Project management plan, update, procurement, management plan, communication, management plan, requirement, management plan, risk management plan, quality management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline. 5. Project document update, resource calendar, requirement, documentation, requirements, traceability matrix, stakeholder register, risk register, lessons learned register. 6. Organizational project, assets update, core of conducting procurements. In this section, we will discuss, in terms of the items from Table 9.5, how to perform the conduct procurement process. Let's start by noting that the goal of this process is to secure an agreement with the seller of the procurement item. It's very important to realize that procuring an item is equivalent to procuring, or outsourcing, a piece of your project. In other words, the procurement item has a piece of project attached to it in terms of its share of the scope, requirements, cost baseline, project schedule, stakeholders, and risks. Most of the plan and project documents appearing in the input column of Table 9.5 carry information about these aspects of the procurement items. This is why these documents are there. This information was mostly already used in preparing the bidding document and the statement of work, SOW, in the plan procurement management process and travels to sellers that way in this process. In this process, this information would be used for various purposes, such as evaluating the bids and proposals and negotiating with the sellers. Example, cost and schedule should stay aligned with the project cost and schedule baselines. Also note that some of the information will come from the seller, who will enter it into these documents. Example, lessons learned during this process for lessons learned register and risks coming from the seller's side for the risk register. The whole process can be summarized in the following steps. 1. Seek sellers. Use suitable means such as advertising and bidder conferences to seek out the sellers and to send the appropriate bidder documents including SOW. 2. Select sellers. Use the source selection criteria, a procurement document, and information from other input documents to evaluate the submitted bids and proposals. In this evaluation, check the proposed cost against that in independent cost estimates, another procurement document. Based on this evaluation, select one or more sellers. 3. Obtain agreement. Use negotiation and other communication skills to reach an agreement with one or more of the selected sellers. Tip: if the proposed cost is incompatible with the independent estimate, the possible causes of this mismatch should be examined, which may include a vague or unclear SOW, misunderstanding of SOW by sellers, or simply that the seller's price is higher than others. Note: bids and quotations are typically used to ask for prices, whereas proposals are used to ask for solutions. Invitations for bids, requests for quotation, and requests for proposals travel from buyer to seller, whereas bids, quotations, and proposals travel from seller to buyer. In the following, we will discuss the tools and techniques referred to in this section. Tools and techniques for conducting procurements. The first goal for the tools and techniques discussed here is to find sellers and provide them with information about the requests for responses. The list of potential sellers can be developed from various sources, such as the World Wide Web, library directories, relevant local associations, trade catalogs, and the performing organization's internal information base. The main techniques used in soliciting seller responses are advertising and bidder conferences. These and other techniques used in conducting procurements are discussed in the following list. Advertising. The request for seller responses can be advertised in the public media or in relevant professional journals. Whether to use advertising depends on the organization's policy. However, some government jurisdictions require public advertising of pending government contracts. Bidder conferences. This refers to meetings with prospective sellers prior to the preparation of a response to ensure that the sellers have a clear understanding of the procurement details, such as the technical and contractual requirements. These meetings can generate amendments to the documents depending on need. The purpose of these meetings is that all potential sellers receive the same kind of detail and amount of information or help so that each seller has an equal opportunity to produce the best response. These conferences are also called contractor conferences, vendor conferences, or pre-bid conferences. Note in some cases, after a proposal is submitted, the buyer can request that the seller supplement its proposal with an oral presentation to provide some additional information, which can then be used to evaluate the seller's proposal. Proposals submitted by sellers need to be evaluated. Proposal evaluation. Using this technique, you will check if a proposal is complete according to the bidding document, including SOW. If it is, evaluate it using the source selection criteria and comparing the cost to the independent cost estimates. As said previously, the purpose of independent estimates is to have a check on the proposed pricing by the seller. Significant differences between the proposed cost and the independent estimate may mean you have a vague or unclear SOW, misunderstanding of SOW by sellers, change in the market, or the seller has failed to offer reasonable pricing. Based on this evaluation, you select one or more sellers. Negotiations are conducted to reach agreements with one or more sellers. Procurement negotiations. Procurement negotiations, also called the contract negotiations, have the following two-pronged goal. Clarify the terms of the purchase, such as the structure and the rights and obligations of the parties in the contract. Reach an agreement. Subjects covered during the negotiations may include the following: applicable terms and laws, authorities, rights, and responsibilities, business management and technical approaches, contract financing, payments and price, proprietary rights, schedule, technical solutions. The conclusion of contract negotiations is a document, the contract, which can be signed by both the buyer and the seller. The final contract signed by both parties can be an offer by the seller or a counteroffer by the buyer. Sometimes for simple procurement items the contract is non-negotiable. Type A contract is a mutually binding legal relationship subject to remedy in court. These negotiations are usually conducted by the procurement team. However, the project manager might be required to be present during negotiations to provide any necessary clarification on the project requirements. Expert judgment is another tool that can be used while conducting procurements. Output of conducting procurements. The main outputs of conducting procurements include the list of selected sellers and the agreements with those selected sellers. These and other output items are discussed in the following paragraphs. Selected sellers. This is the list of sellers that you or the procurement team have selected as a result of the proposal and bid evaluations. A subset of these sellers would get the contract rewarded to them. Agreements, also called procurement awards, these are the contracts awarded to selected sellers after negotiations. A contract is a legal document that obligates the seller to provide the specified procurement item or items and obligates the buyer to make the payment to the seller. The contract can be a simple purchase order or a complex document, depending on the nature of the procurement. Depending on the nature of the procurement, a contract can include the following: list of deliverables and statement of work, schedule, performance reporting, acceptance criteria, change request handling, inflation adjustments, penalties and incentives, terms of pricing and payment, product support, roles and responsibilities, termination and dispute handling mechanisms, insurance, limitation of liability, warranty, changes and updates. The activities of this process may generate change requests, and these change requests and some other actions may cause the need to update some documents, such as those listed in the output column of Table 9.5. Study Checkpoint 9.4. True or false? The main goals of the conduct procurements process are to select the sellers, award procurement contracts to them, and obtain the procurement item. The three most important takeaways from this chapter are as follows. The direct and manage project work process is a high-level process to produce project deliverables. Use the manage quality process to identify quality requirements and standards relevant to the project and its product and to determine how to implement those. Use the implement risk responses process to make sure that all the planned risk responses are executed as planned. The procurement plan is implemented by using the conduct procurements process, which involves requesting seller responses, evaluating seller responses, selecting sellers based on the evaluation, and negotiating and signing contracts with the selected sellers. Summary. The project management plan is executed using the processes in the executing process group. The high-level umbrella process in this group is the direct and manage project work process, whose main goal is to produce the project deliverables to meet the project objectives. Under this process, other executing processes are performed to complete the scheduled activities and tasks. A significant task to perform during project execution is managing quality, the process for which implements the quality plan by executing some quality activities in light of the organization's quality policies to examine quality measurements. Also, the implement risk response process is performed to make sure that all the planned risk responses are executed as planned and with the goal of minimizing the impact of threats and maximizing the impact of opportunities on the project. Due to a lack of resources in the performing organization, you might need to obtain some products, services, or results from outside the project team to complete the project. This is called procurement. The conduct procurements process is used to implement the procurement plan, which involves obtaining seller responses, selecting sellers based on the responses, and reaching an agreement with the selected sellers. Performing all these processes will produce new information and knowledge. This information and knowledge is managed by the Manage Project Knowledge process, which is used to help meet the project objectives and contribute to organizational knowledge and learning by creating new knowledge and using existing knowledge. Road ahead, to perform the project work as described in this chapter, you will be using the planned team and physical resources. These resources will need to be managed, which is the topic of the next chapter. Exams I view. Comprehend. Executing the project means implementing the project management plan developed during project planning. The execution of a project is managed by performing the process called direct and manage project work, a high-level umbrella process for the executing stage, which generates the project deliverables. The manage quality process identifies quality problems by comparing quality control measurements against the quality requirements and standards, examines these problems, and makes recommendations and change requests to eliminate or fix them. The manage quality process also develops tests and evaluations to be used by the control quality process to check or verify they have been actually fixed. Conducting procurements is the process of obtaining responses from potential sellers, selecting sellers based on those responses, and awarding contracts to the selected sellers. Implementation of risk responses is managed by the implement risk responses process and not by the monitor risk process. Look out. The two major output items of the direct and manage project work process are project deliverables and work performance data, sometimes also wrongly called performance information. Approved change requests must be implemented by performing the direct and manage project work process. The proposal and input of conduct procurements is created during the same process by the seller. Also remember, a residual risk is the remains of a risk on which a response has been performed, whereas a secondary risk is a risk that arises as a result of implementing a risk response. Reminder, invitations for bids, requests for quotations, and requests for proposals travel from buyer to seller, whereas bids, quotations, and proposals travel from seller to buyer. Memorize. The project management plan is the major input to the direct and manage project work process. Directing and managing project work involves managing various technical and organizational interfaces in the project to facilitate the smooth execution of the project work. The manage quality process generates tests and evaluation documents as an output item, which become an input into the control quality process. The risk register contains information about individual project risks, and the risk report contains information about the sources of overall project risks and a summary of individual project risks. Review questions. 1. What is not true about the manage project knowledge process? A. It generates the lessons learned register. B. It generates the lessons learned. C. It is performed at the end of a project or phase. D. It uses project deliverables. 2. The process or processes used to learn lessons from projects are: A. Manage project knowledge. B. Direct and manage project work. C. Monitor and control project work. D. Close project or phase. 3. Which of the following is not the output of directing and managing project work? A. Accepted deliverables. B. Issues log. C. Work performance data. D. Change requests. 4. Which of the following is not an input to the manage quality process? A. Quality metrics. B. Quality control measurements. C. Risk report. D. Work performance data. 5. You are the project manager for the Mind the Gap project. You are going to meet with your project team, where you are going to develop quality tests that incorporate the organization's quality policies and procedures. Which of the following processes are you performing? A. Quality control. B. Manage quality. C. Quality planning. D. Quality assurance. 6. You are the project manager of the Green Schools project. Your supervisor has asked you to make some self-checks and inspections before the stakeholders ask for a formal inspection. It is time to perform which process? A. Plan quality. B. Perform quality control. C. Perform quality assurance. D. Manage quality. 7. In project risk management, which of the following statements is not true? A. Risk report contains information about the overall project risk. B. Exploiting an opportunity ensures that the positive risk does occur. C. An output of the plan risk responses process is a document called the risk response plan. D. The lowest level of RBS can often be used as a checklist, which could be the list of risk categories. 8. The seller proposals, an input item for conduct procurement, is created during which process? A. Conduct procurement. B. Plan procurements. C. Control procurement. D. Close procurement. 9. Quality audits are part of which of the following quality management processes? A. Manage quality. B. Control quality. C. Plan quality. D. Quality inspection. 10. You are the project manager for the ABC project. You are going to meet with your project team to discuss how to ensure that the project will be completed without any deviations from the project requirements. Which of the following processes are you performing? A. Quality control. B. Plan quality. C. Manage quality. D. Conduct procurements.